Looking for some new art inspired by the national parks? Then be sure to check out our online store, The Gaze Shop.
This season, as we explore the landscapes of Olympic National Park, Mount Rainier National Park, Carlsbad Cavern National Park, and Guadalupe Mountains National Park, we've got some new items and designs coming your way.
Introducing our Olympic National Park and Mount Rainier National Park posters. These 12 by 18 posters make a great addition to any home or office, or a great gift for any lover of the national parks, even if that national parks lover is you.
Whether it's art for your wall or a sticker for your water bottle, you're sure to find something that sparks your love of the outdoors. Visit shop.gazeatthenationalparks.com to bring some of the national parks home with you. Hello and welcome to Trail Mix by Gaze at the National Parks. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dusty. If you're joining us for the first time, Trail Mix is the short format episodes of our show, while our long format episodes explore one hiking trail and one national park, one park at a time. Trail Mix allows us to dive deeper into the things we didn't get to cover in our long format episodes, including interviews, history, science, and environmental justice.
That's right, and this Trail Mix episode is all about the science of tide pools, also known as tidal pooling.
If you've been listening to our episodes from this season, you'll know that we are working our way through the mossy and mountainous Olympic National Park, which is home to all kinds of environments, including mountain ranges, which the park is known for, the Olympic Mountain Range, temperate rainforests, like the Hoh Rainforest. Check out our recent Trail Mix episode on the science of rainforests, and ocean shores featuring their prominent and famous sea stacks, which look like giant boulders floating in the middle of the water just off the shore.
The shores of Olympic National Park also feature some incredible and memorable tide pools. And while Olympic National Park is not the only national park with tide pools, we've also seen them up close at Acadia National Park in Maine. Their environment and ecosystems are worth diving into, no pun intended.
All right, so you and I, we both grew up near the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you have any tide pool experience growing up?
No, not tide pool experience.
No, none that I can recall.
Not tide pool experience. When I was a kid and I would go to the beach in the summer, there was an inlet that I would go to the beach right near that had a jetty, which is, for those of us not familiar, usually it's boulders that kind of jut out from the shoreline to help with erosion. That is like a debunked science now, so a lot of...
Dare you say it jettison out?
Mm-hmm.
Is that perhaps where we
Perhaps,
get the term?
But a lot of beaches are getting rid of them now or breaking through them so that the water is able to flow through a little easier. At least for this inlet, the jetty does run out from the beach to make it a clear channel through. And the jetty also juts towards the beaches, kind of creating an L. So we had like a cove, and this was an area that was just rife with sea life. So there would be like starfish and like other small fish. And so when we were at the beach, we would kind of take things in a bucket full of water back to the beach spot and then, you know, move them back into the water eventually. It was kind of like a tide pool experience for us within like a sand bucket. So not tide pools per se, but adjacent.
I see.
And what about you?
No. No tide pools on the
Gulf Coast.
The Mississippi Gulf Coast. Not that I ever recall or see. There might be some like in the Back Bay, because I know there are some rocks there. It happens more often with rocks, but the coast of Mississippi actually is the longest human-made beach in the world.
Oh.
That beach, that sand was literally brought in.
Oh.
And added.
Oh.
Because the water used to go all the way up to just like, there were these concrete steps they put in all along the coast next to the boardwalk. And the water just came up to the boardwalk rather than sand. So they brought in that sand.
Fascinating.
I know. So let's start with what is a tide pool and how it is formed.
A tide pool is like a small pocket of seawater located in an intertidal zone. They usually occur where rocks meet water. Tide pools don't often happen near sand since sand shifts. Tide pools thrive in stable and flexible environments. Anytime seawater is trapped in the crevice of a boulder or erosion creates a crevice in a boulder, a tide pool is formed. This occurs during the change in tides. High tide brings in the seawater, and as the water flows out in low tide, then the water is trapped, helping to create and establish environments where life can grow.
Animals like mussels, barnacle, urchins, crustaceans, seaweed, small fish, snails, sea anemones, starfish or sea stars, or hermit crabs may find homes in a tide pool, as well as an abundance of plant life, including algae.
When the water recedes at low tide, the animals and plant life that have found a home in the tide pool must face hours of survival before the tide returns, including low amounts of oxygen, exposed sun, increasing water temperature, and predators like seagulls, pelicans, and other birds. When the high tide returns, fresh seawater does replenish the environment. It always brings crashing waves and larger fish that the life of the tide pool must also survive. Therefore, the life in a tide pool is surviving on inevitable and perhaps forced resilience, much like the gay community and teachers in America.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
That was for you.
I'm a teacher.
To withstand this tumultuous environment, the life in the tide pool must adapt ways of desperately clinging on for dear life, much like the gay community and teachers in America. Barnacles are a perfect example of this because barnacles are gay. They are also teachers.
Oh my God.
But barnacles do create a super strong glue that attaches them to a rock. And they are said to create the strongest glue on the planet. They are even trying to study it for this reason, to see if they can replicate it, obviously for capitalism reasons.
You took the words right from my mouth. Given the small size of the tide pool, food is actually quite abundant inside a tide pool environment. As high tide brings in more water, it also brings with it nutrients, plankton, and other tiny organisms that the existing life can feed on.
The first time we actively saw tide pools was in Acadia National Park on a hike with Hillary Nangle, Becky Lomax, and Becky's friend Jane. It was on the Ship Harbor Trail, which is on the southwest end of Bar Island. So, these tide pools in Acadia.
Yeah.
We have talked about it briefly in somewhere else in the interview with Hillary, but
and with the interview with Becky about East Coast, West Coast parks.
What a beautiful thing to experience there. These tide pools that we were looking at, some tide pools are small,
itty bitty.
If there's a crevice, any amount of crevice that can create life, then a tide pool has been formed.
As Jeff Goldblum said, life finds a way.
Where water pools. So a lot of water had pooled in this one spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a tide
a tide
pool,
lake.
but it was
wide.
I mean, it was like a continent in its vastness. This tide pool.
You could not step over it.
Oh, no.
Around
yeah,
it.
It was like a
It was
lake.
giant.
It was like a pond, certainly, but it was beautiful. And it was every shade of green I could ever see in one spot. Mm-hmm. Really special.
A lot of sea plant life.
There were even some
starfish.
small fish in there.
Yeah.
There were definitely some starfish in there.
And anemones, right?
Yeah. And anemones. Yeah, we had a great time. They were beautiful. Highly recommend. Some great spots to see tide pools in Acadia is literally everywhere. You can get up close and personal with them on the Ship Harbor Trail, but Acadia features rocky shores. So there are literally tide pools anywhere there's a shore of water and rocks. There are probably tide pools near there. Hey y'all, it's Dusty and Mike with exciting news.
That's right. It's our episode finder. It's all about making finding our episodes even easier.
Want to find more episodes about hikes in Shenandoah? With over 10 episodes across 2 separate seasons, it would have involved a lot of scrolling and searching.
Now, with our episode finder, you can find all those episodes with a few easy clicks. That way, finding an episode on Yosemite from season 1 is just as easy as finding an episode on Zion, Yellowstone, and Haleakala, all in separate seasons.
With over 275 episodes in 35 different national parks, our episode finder will add ease when finding out more about hikes in these spaces.
But it's not just about hikes by national park. We've categorized our entire library so you can find hikes by state, hikes by terrain, and hikes by difficulty.
And all of our Trail Mix episodes are there too, so you can easily find our science-based episodes, interviews, and more.
Planning a trip to Colorado and want to hear more about our adventures there? Want to grunt it out on some really tricky trails or learn more about glaciers, grasslands, and mountains?
Just click the link in our show notes or on our Instagram bio, and it pops right up. You can also head directly to our website and look for the episode finder at the top of the navigation bar.
Conquer one hike in one national park, one park at a time, with just a few clicks with our episode finder. Happy trails! Another place we saw incredible tide pools was Olympic National Park.
Okay, so we saw some unbelievable tide pooling on the Shai Shai Beach hike. Totally different kind of tide pool experience than in Acadia.
Well, because this I feel like was more, there were rocks on the beach, and those rocks sort of eroded a pool of sand. A lot of those tide pools were just like bored out sand on Shai Shai Beach, at least.
That had a barrier of rock on like one side, sort of keeping the stability.
Yeah, but we also saw tide pools when we were on the Rialto Beach hike, close to Hole in the Wall.
We did. The thing about the starfish here, we've talked about this in the episodes, but like the starfish are unreal.
They're like a coat of many colors.
I mean, they are, and there were so many of them, and they're huge. It's the kind that you study about when you maybe study starfish in science class.
In biology.
When you see that, and they're big, and they're beautiful, and they're like full of life, and effervescent.
Very different from like East Coast starfish, for sure.
There's quite a bit of wildlife that finds its home in the tide pools on the shores of Olympic National Park. Its biggest star is the starfish or sea star, as we just mentioned. These come in many colors from vibrant orange to deep purple to bright red. I think that was most of them, right? Among them is found algae, seaweed, eelgrass, bull kelp, chitin, limpets, and snails.
Specifically in Olympic National Park, if you see any injured sea life that may be in danger, be sure to call a ranger at 1-877-326-8837 or 187-SEA-OTTER. That's the number to the West Coast Marine Stranding Hotline. Do not attempt to rescue it yourself.
We're talking like seals, sea lion, things like that. Like things that are larger that need
assistance,
real medical attention. Making a call is being a hero.
Yeah.
Some great spots to see tide pools in Olympic National Park include Shai Shai Beach, Second Beach, Hole in the Wall near Rialto Beach, which is where we were talking about, and Kalaloch area beaches.
We hope you nerd as hard as we do about tide pools, but do remember that it is a natural environment and we must not interfere. So here are the few practices to put in place for yourself when you head out to find a good tide pool.
First, make like Mike and stress out over the tide schedule. Do you need to say anything for yourself?
No, that's who I am.
Great. Do check the tide schedule to see when low tide is and when high tide is returning. At high tide, you won't be able to see the life in the tide pool, but at low tide, the water will have receded, making it visible. Tide schedules are always published online, and some rangers even post them at the trailhead. Knowing when high tide is going to come in is very important so you can plan accordingly. You want to be done with your tide pool experience and out of the way before high tide returns.
Also, like any outdoor space, be a steward to the natural world. Bring a bag with you so that you can pick up any garbage or debris that may have made it to the tide pool habitat. Put it in the bag and pack it out.
So if you see a floating water bottle inside of a big tide pool, it's not a good idea to take a step inside of that tide pool to get that bottle of water. Do your best to fish it out some other way. Rocks near tide pools can be slippery. Make sure you've got solid footwear on. Unlike us on the triangle hike when we wore sneakers instead of our hiking boots. And check the foothold before putting any weight anywhere. So that's when you're standing and you put your foot out and you test the rock before you actually step on it. And this is to avoid stepping on algae or other plant life. And always remember that dry rocks make for the best footholds.
Don't take any wildlife with you when you leave. It's mostly illegal to do this anywhere, but remember that you are a visitor to their space and you want to leave the wildlife and their environment unharmed.
We love dogs, but dogs in tide pools don't usually play well. Dogs might try to jump in the tide pool, thus disturbing the environment. They can also injure themselves in barnacles, which again are very sharp and are cement-like in the rock that they create, and are so attached to the boulder that they're connected to, or the whale, or whatever they're connected to, via that very strong glue that they make.
The sources for today's episode include the National Park Service, oceanconservancy.org, the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Service.
And now let's end this trail mix with a game. It's time for some tide pools word morph.
Great.
All of these have, they rhyme with, we could call this rhyme time, but it's a word morph. So here we go.
They all rhyme with what, though?
Tide pools.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
You trailed off.
So for instance, this is what you might jump into when you want to not tell the truth.
What's a lied pool?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is what you might swim in if you had to agree to go along with guidance or direction from someone else.
What's a guide pool?
I'll take guide pool. I will also take abide pools.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. This is where you might go and submerge yourself in with your best friend when you want to tell him your secrets.
What is a confide pool?
That's right. Okay, great.
Which is just any body of water we're in.
That's a secrets.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you might jump into and swim around in if you want to make fun of or mock or sneer someone else.
What is the deride pool?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I would have also taken chide pool.
Mm-hmm.
This is what every tide pool becomes in June.
What is a fried pool?
Yes, but particularly June and its cultural significance for our community.
What is a pride pool?
There you go. This is where you go when you are rejected.
What is my mom's ride pool?
Nope.
When you're rejected.
When you are not given access.
What is a denied pool?
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And the last one. Ready?
Yep.
This is where you go when you're saying it, but you're not actually saying it. When you don't have to say it because there are clues in the thing that point you to what it's actually saying.
What is the underlied pool?
Underlied tool pool is incorrect. No, it's like I don't have to say it because
What's the supplied pool?
not supplied, but it is 2 syllables. The deeper answer is right there on the surface, and you don't have to say it explicitly because it is this.
I don't know. Just
What is implied
Oh, the
pools?
implied pool.
The implied pool. Access denied pool.
Looking for more episodes like the one you just heard? Then be sure to check out our episode finder for episodes by park, state, hiking difficulty, and terrain, as well as all of our Trail Mix episodes in one helpful place. Click the link in the show notes of this episode, our Instagram bio, or visit our website to make your listening experience even easier.
This has been Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast, and we're here to remind you to hike early and hike often, and that adventure is always out there.
Gaze at the National Parks was created, produced, edited, and hosted by us,
Dustin Ballard.
and Michael Ryan.
To see images from this episode, follow our Instagram at Gaze at the National Parks. To contact us, email us at gazeatthenationalparks@gmail.com. And to find out more about the parks visited on this show, visit our website, gazeatthenationalparks.com. That's Gaze, G-A-Z-E.
All original artwork featured on Instagram and on our website is by me, Michael Ryan.
All original music was written and performed by Dave Seaman and Mariella Klinger, with Sean Sklios on guitar. Our music producer is Skylar Fortgang.
We would also like to acknowledge that while recording this episode that we were on the traditional and stolen lands of the Lenape people, also known as New Jersey.